Welcome to our deep dive where we take your stack of sources and really distill them into the most important nuggets of knowledge.
Hmm.
You probably know Emily Ratajkowski. Model, actor, author.
Mm.
She's even popped up on viral TikToks, right? She's definitely out there in lots of different corners of pop culture.
Yeah, she's hard to miss.
But recently, she made this statement that really got people talking. She said, "I have zero straight men in my life unless they're a romantic interest."
Wow. Yeah, that's a statement that definitely cuts right through, doesn't it? It touches on relationships, identity,
Mm,
all that modern stuff. Provocative, for sure.
right. But maybe deeper than it sounds.
Exactly. It sounds like it's deeply personal for her, too.
Absolutely. So today we're doing a deep dive into what Emily Ratajkowski is calling her new era. We've gathered insights from, recent interviews, LUK, Homegirls magazine, plus bits from her book, My Body, other sources too.
Hmm.
And our mission really is to unpack what she means by decentering straight men and what else is shifting for her. Career, creativity, being a mom, just navigating the world.
And it's fascinating because her personal thing, it sort of mirrors this bigger cultural conversation, right?
Yeah.
About defining your own space, your relationships, but on your own terms.
Yeah, taking control.
Taking agency over who really, truly sustains you. That's the core of it, I think.
So if you've ever felt that pressure, to fit certain molds, or you're just curious how someone so public figures out their own path, well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Yeah.
We're going to go beyond just the sound bites, try and get into the depth of her thinking and maybe some of the wisdom she's finding as she approaches 34.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start right there with that big statement. Emily Ratajkowski saying zero straight men in her life unless they're romantic. It sounds pretty absolute. What's she actually getting at?
Well, she does clarify it, and that's really key here. She says straight men are for, quote, pleasure and fun, but not a part of my core. So it's not like no men allowed, full stop.
Mhm.
It's about redefining who gets into that inner circle, the people who give you that daily support, that emotional sustenance.
Right. So who is in the core then?
What is at her core, she says, is community with other women and queer people, and being a mom. That's her focus.
That difference, pleasure and fun versus core community, that feels really significant. So what does that community look like for her day to day? Can you give us a sense of that?
Yeah, she gives some good examples, like having dinner and drinks with women friends, talking her words with friends like Edwoa Boa,
Okay.
or even planning a holiday just with them this summer. And she mentioned her friendship with Charlie XCX, too, calls their dynamic brat.
Ha. Okay.
So it's not just like casual chats. These sound like really sustaining, active relationships. It's about intentionally curating your relationships, I think.
Intentionally curating. I like that.
Yeah, like actively figuring out what you need for support and connection, and then choosing who fills those roles, not just, defaulting to how things usually are or who you've always known.
Right. Instead of just letting it happen.
Exactly. It kind of makes you ask yourself, right, who really sustains you day to day?
That makes a lot of sense. And it feels like this probably didn't just happen overnight. Does her past dating life kind of give us some context for this shift?
Oh, definitely. It seems very much informed by her experiences, especially, her divorce in 2022 from Sebastian Bear McLeod.
Right.
She talked about feeling properly single for the first time after that. And what's interesting is how proud she sounds of it. She said something like, younger version of myself would have probably settled for some mid-dude just to have a boyfriend. Glad I'm not in that era anymore.
So that independence was important.
Yeah, it seems like that period led to this more intentional approach. And she also said on her podcast, High Low with Himrata, that she felt she used to attract the worst men.
Oof. Okay.
So yeah, that would definitely make you want to rethink your priorities, wouldn't it?
For sure. And it's not just about men, is it? She's also been pretty open about exploring her own sexuality, saying she'd love to date a woman. How does she talk about that broader reevaluation?
She put it really nicely, actually. She said, I've always been someone who's more attracted to vibe than specifics of physicality. So sometimes it'll just randomly hit me and I'll be like, whoa, I'm attracted to this person.
So less about labels, more about connection.
Exactly. It's about being open to connection based on energy and who someone is, not just fitting into boxes. And, while she's open to dating women, we have seen her linked with various A-listers since the divorce.
Right. The headlines mention Brad Pitt, Pete Davidson.
Eric Andre, Harry Styles, and now country singer Shabuzi most recently. So her romantic life is definitely still active. But it seems like it's happening more on her own terms now, redefined
Yeah.
terms.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Moving from relationships, Ratajkowski talks about this time, turning 34, as a freeing chapter. What's driving that feeling, this sense of liberation and control, especially when it comes to her career?
Yeah, this seems like a really big evolution for her, and it's centered around this word control.
Control, okay.
If you think back, her experience with that Robin Thicke music video, Blurred Lines,
Hmm.
she called it a pretty horrific experience later on.
I remember that coming out.
Right, and her reflection is really stark. She said, I didn't have any real power as the naked girl dancing around. I was nothing more than the hired mannequin.
Wow. Hired mannequin. Yeah.
It's brutal, and you can see how an experience like that would fundamentally change how you approach your work, making you really crave agency.
Absolutely. So moving from feeling like a mannequin to having control, how's she actually doing that now? How is she exercising that control in her work today?
Well, she's way more selective now. She says, I don't agree to a lot of offers. And the reason? She really values control. She's moved from being like the object in the picture to being the one helping create the picture. She likes making things, she says, not being in addition to them. Making things, not just being in addition. Yeah, it's a really powerful shift, isn't it? Turning that feeling of vulnerability from the past into strength now. He awfully starts by, looking back at those times you didn't have agency and then deliberately setting things up differently going forward, prioritizing your own input.
And that focus on creating, not just being added on, seems really clear in her recent acting, especially in Lena Dunham's new Netflix show, Too Much. She plays Wendy, right? The model influencer rebound girlfriend. What was different there?
Well, Lena Dunham apparently wrote that part specifically for her.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And Ratajkowski said she got to shape the character so much, which she found really fun. It gave her a bigger role than just an actor for hire. So that direct collaboration, getting to influence the character, that's exactly the kind of control she's talking about.
And it sounds like her friendship with Lena Dunham is part of that too, that Dunham was supportive early on.
Yeah, she said Dunham was a welcoming and understanding ally right when she first got famous, which was a time she felt, quote, no one really was, to be honest.
That personal connection must make a difference professionally then.
Seems like it. Ratajkowski really praises Dunham's directing style, too. Calls it feminine, meaning things like over-communication, consideration of everyone on set, grace, and ability to make everyone feel comfortable.
That sounds different from the hired mannequin vibe.
Worlds apart, right?
Yeah.
It's collaborative, respectful, exactly the kind of environment that supports her wanting active participation, not just being treated like an object.
We can kind of see where some of this comes from, too, looking at her background. Her parents and our artist dad, a writer and professor mom, intellectuals. She remembers her dad's studio being huge and her mom creating this whole reading curriculum for her when she was just 5. How did that kind of upbringing shape her?
It definitely seems like it fostered this multidisciplinary way of looking at things. She said her parents didn't push her one way or another, but they talked about stories, politics, encouraged discussion.
Right.
And while she apparently used to be ashamed of being a jack of all trades, now she seems proud of being a successful polymath.
Which makes sense when you look at her career.
Exactly.
Right.
Gone Girl, Marc Jacobs campaigns, writing those feminist essays. It's quite a range. Her journey kind of shows that maybe fulfillment isn't always about narrowing down.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about embracing all the different threads.
Yeah, interesting point. And it's not just what she does, but how she does it now seems different too. Like her writing routine. She used to write sort of casually, right? In bed and on my phone.
Yeah. Almost trying to pretend it wasn't serious, like anything to make it seem as if I wasn't feeling pressure.
So what's it like now?
Now, she says, I actually really enjoy the ritual of sitting down and being like, we're getting to work.
So it's become a practice.
Totally. That shift from casual, almost hiding it, to this committed ritual that shows real self-possession, right? A commitment to her own creative work. It's another way she's taking control, defining her own process.
Okay, so this focus on control, on authenticity, it's reshaping her public life, her work. How does that play out in her most personal role? As a mom to her son, Sly.
Well, her whole parenting philosophy seems to revolve around teaching him critical thinking, not telling him what to do or be. She says, I don't have any idea what he should do with his life. I want to give him that gift, but if he decides that there's something that's more fulfilling to him, that's wonderful.
So she's giving him the same freedom she's finding for herself.
Exactly. It mirrors her own journey of finding her voice, and she wants to extend that freedom, that critical thinking, to him.
And she goes even further, right? Talking about being subversive with motherhood, especially her style. Like wearing that Arcrum t-shirt, the one with the hairy naked woman for the school drop-off.
Yeah, that definitely got some attention. But what's key is how little she seems to care about what others think about it, parenting-wise. She says, I know what kind of mom I am, and I only deeply care about my son's reaction to that.
Right.
Anybody else who has opinions about me as a mother because of the way I dress, it's just so inconsequential.
Yeah.
It really speaks to prioritizing your own conviction over what everyone else thinks, especially when it comes to something as judged as motherhood.
Building that internal compass, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this authenticity, it doesn't stop there. It seems to really inform her politics, too. She admits being chronically online relatable.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And she connects with that Gia Tolentino piece in The New Yorker, My Brain Finally Broke, about feeling like the world is just slipping out of control. It sounds like she feels the chaos, like a lot of us.
She's quite open about her political journey, saying, every year I've become more and more left-wing.
Okay.
And her perspective, just to be clear, these are her views we're reporting from the sources.
Right. Important distinction.
Her view is that under Biden, people kind of backed off being politically engaged, got asleep at the wheel, she says. And she feels that led to this state of shock now with Trump potentially returning. She says there's no confusion for me about where she stands.
So she's clearly feeling a sense of urgency there.
Mm-hmm. And again, our role here is just to convey what's in the source material impartially, so you, the listener, can understand her perspective.
Got it. And she points to one issue in particular, right? The treatment of transgender people. What does she say there?
Yeah, she finds that deeply concerning. She says, I can't believe what's happening when it comes to trans people in this country. It's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care about gender other than as a personal expression. So it's really hard for me to understand this thinking and the desire to control people. But the personal is political.
So it all ties back for her. Individual freedom, expression, resisting control.
Exactly. It loops right back to that core theme running through everything else, resisting external control over who you are and how you live.
So wrapping this up, through this deep dive, we've seen Emily Ratajkowski, maybe in a new light. Not just the model or actress, but this woman who's really intentionally sculpting her life.
Yeah, sculpting is a good word. Around community, control, authenticity.
She seems to be navigating her 30s with this really clear vision, prioritizing what actually matters to her, whether that's her creative work, her core relationships, even her political beliefs.
It's a pretty compelling story of redefining yourself, isn't it? She's not just, like, reacting to things. She seems to be actively shaping them, making these really deliberate choices about who and what is central in her life.
Not just accepting what society might expect.
Right.
And her journey, it kind of raises a question for the rest of us, doesn't it? What does it really mean to decenter something that society tells us should be central?
Yeah, that's a big one.
And how can we maybe be more intentional, like Emily seems to be, in shaping our own paths?
Yeah.
Finding our own core community, prioritizing what actually brings us, pleasure, fun, and purpose.
She talks about avoiding accidents by being more intentional in your next decade, thinking about what accidents you might avoid. It's about designing your life, not just letting it happen.
Yeah, proactive design versus passive living. Something to think about. What stands out to you from Emily's story? We'd love for you to mull that over. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Emily Ratajkowski. We'll be back soon with more insights from the sources you share.